Hey YouTube, I've got an oldie but a goodie in the shop. This one is a 2002 F350 Super Duty with the 7.3 liter Power Stroke diesel. The customer complaint today is that the truck has issues starting when it's colder than say 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything warmer than that, the truck seems to start just fine. And even on a cold start, 45 or colder, once the truck's started, it has no problems running on all 8 cylinders. It runs smooth, has plenty of power. It's just that initial cold start that's difficult. The owner's been plugging it in just to make sure that it'll start at 45 degrees. And we're getting to winter time here in Alaska. It's starting to get colder than that. We've had mornings where it's dipped down into the teens, so very important to get this truck going. It's a plow truck. As you can see, it's got plow mounts on it. So this truck's is needed for work, particularly in the wintertime. You'll have to forgive me for the poor camera work today. I'm solo in the shop today. So what we've got here is just your usual 12-volt test light. One end connected to the negative terminal of the battery, or good ground, and I'll just touch the positive end just to make sure that the light is working. The next thing I like to do with these hard start when cold problems is try to find the glow plug relay. On these 7.3s, it's just aft of the fuel filter here. So anyway, you'll have 2 big terminals on the side of the glow plug relay. This is a federal emissions truck, so it's got the old school solenoid style glow plug relay. So you've got 2 big lugs. One should always have battery power. As you can see here, this lug's got good battery power. You can double check that with a meter to make sure that your light's not faking you out, but for a quick test, light's sufficient. Now the other big terminal on the relay here is one that has 2 wires going to it, usually yellow and a brown, at least on a federal emissions truck. This terminal should only get power when the ignition switch is in the on position and the engine's cold. There is a engine oil temperature sensor just below this cover here that tells the engine computer or PCM to trigger the glow plug system if the engine temperature is sufficiently cold. I don't remember the exact specs, but if the engine's cold, that should come on with the ignition in the on position. So I'll run over to the ignition switch here, turn it to the on position, and as you can see here, we have light. So that's an indication that the glow plug relay is working properly. So with the glow plug solenoid or relay working, we've eliminated the switch for the engine oil temperature sensor, as well as the wiring between the PCM and the temperature sensor, and the wiring between the glow plug relay and the battery, and the glow plug relay and the control from the PCM. So we know that side of the system's good. The next thing I like to do once I've determined that this side of the system's okay is pull the connector off of the under valve cover harness, which is, this is the passenger side, so the odd bank 1, 3, 5, 7. And if you can see right here, this is the connector for it. I'll pull that connector and check for power over here with the ignition in the on position. We should have good power here, and that'll eliminate any problems with the wiring between the glow plug relay and the connector here. One thing to note is these connectors are quite tricky to remove. You want to push down on this center nub right here. Won't be able to get this on camera with me working alone today, but you want to push directly down onto this center nub in here to release this connector. So for clarity, this is what you want to push down on. You don't want to push here. You don't want to try to pry anything. You want to push directly in the center here and wiggle this guy out. Now, once we're here, you'll see there's 4 terminals here that we want to focus on. These 2 fat ones on the outer edges right here, where my thumbnail is. These 2 guys, 1, 2, and these 2, 3 and 4. These are the terminals that lead to the glow plugs. So we want to ensure that we've got good power here, 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 and here. So let me go get some stuff so that we can probe these here without damaging the connector, and I'll get back to you in the next segment. Okay, so I've got the ignition switch back in the on position so that the glow plug relay is on. And now, as you can see here, I've got power to that terminal. So I'll check the other 3 and just make sure that we've got power on all 4 of those terminals. Okay, as you can see here, my test light is on. I am on the second connector here. I'm going to repeat that test on the other 3. That was just the easiest one for me to get to for the purposes of the video. So you want to ensure that you've got power going to this connector on those 4 terminals. And you'll have to work quickly, or it helps to have an assistant, because eventually the glow plug system will time out. So do it quickly, do your test, and check all 4 pins. Okay, so I did it off camera. We have good power to all 4 of these terminals here in the connector. So we've determined that we've got good power going to the connector. The next thing we want to do is to see if there's continuity between the under valve cover harness and ground. So what we do is we'll put the test light on the positive terminal of the battery, and we'll carefully probe those 4 same pins, the 2 on the outer side here and the 2 that are right by my index finger there. Very carefully probe those with the test light. And remember, the test light's hooked to power. You want to be very careful to only touch the pins you're trying to test. So, as you can see here, the light did not turn on. So we have a continuity issue between the under valve cover harness and the glow plug. It could either be the harness or it could be the glow plug is burnt open. So we'll move on to the second pin. As you can see here, with the second pin, the light still does not come on. So moving on to the third, see if I could do this on camera. No light on pin number 3. So we'll move on to the final pin. And we got light. So that tells me that only one of the 4 glow plugs on this bank are working, and it's either the glow plugs themselves or this under valve cover harness that's faulty, and we won't figure that out until we get everything apart. So I'll go ahead and repeat that test on the driver's side bank, which has a bunch of stuff covering it. I'll repeat that test on the other side here just to make sure we don't have more than 3 potential glow plugs out. For quick reference, this is the air filter box, the air intake duct going into the turbo, and just down here, if I can get it to focus, is the injector and glow plug connector for the driver's side bank, which is the even cylinders 2, 4, and 6, and 8. Same type of connector. You want to test the outer pins on the connector for power with the glow plug relay on. And then you'll also, once this is unplugged, check for continuity to ground through those same 4 terminals on the other side of the connector, just like I did on the other side. So I'll do this off camera and report back to you what I find in the next segment. Okay, so what I've determined here is that everything on the driver's side bank seems to check out just fine. We've got good power going to the connector that plugs into the under valve cover harness, and we've got good continuity between ground and the separate terminals on that under valve cover harness. So that test light came on all 4 glow plugs, so that harness is fine, and that glow plug, the 4 glow plugs on that side are most likely fine. So we will concentrate on this passenger side. We've got to remove the valve cover and everything else that's in the way. So as I get stuff removed, I'll turn the camera back on and tell you what I did. So the first thing that will likely happen here is I'll get some hoses and connectors off, like this barometric or map sensor out of the way, and this charge air cooler pipe. We'll remove the clamps here, and at the intercooler right there, we'll yank this pipe out of the way. And it's just a matter of getting everything out of the way so that you can get to the valve cover and remove it. So the socket size for these charge air cooler pipe clamps is a 7/16. Basically, you just want to loosen the clamps until there's enough slack here to get that hose off of the inlet for the turbocharger. And we'll do the same down here at the intercooler. You'll probably need to use like a long extension to get down there, but same deal. Just loosen it till that hose can come off. And these electric ratchets are very handy for getting stuff like this done quickly. My socket just came off, so I'll have to go find that. But those clamps are loose, so I'll try to get the hoses loosened up off of the intercooler and the turbocharger over there, and we'll get back to you. Once you have the clamp sufficiently loosened, so as you can see here, this one's even spun around, we'll pull this off of the turbo. All right, now we'll push it towards the firewall to release the intercooler side. It's just one of those tricky things. You just got to be patient, and eventually it'll come off. You got to make sure your hose clamp is loose enough for it to slide off. Oh, I wish I had a light on. Anyway, there it goes. It just came off. So now we can push this back towards the front of the truck. Sorry about the focus. And then snake this guy out of here. Like so. Something else I did is I also disconnected this right here. There's this red lock clip. It's usually in the up position. So you got to slide this guy down to the position it's in now, and then this center tab right here, you push in and then it'll come off. And then when you put it back together, it's just a matter of pushing back in, letting it click, and then pushing the lock tab back in the up position. And I just took the hose off from that end just because it was easier to get to. So now we are almost there. We just need to get the heater hoses out of the way and just tidy up in here, make sure stuff is out of the way. I will suggest that you tape this opening up on the turbo as well as the charge air cooler, just to make sure that nothing bad gets in there. So next on the agenda, getting stuff out of the way, are these clamps that hold the heater hoses on to the valve cover. So the heater hoses themselves just pop off. And what I'll do, just get them out of my way, is just kind of move them over. I might actually take a line or a rope and tie it over out of the way here. Now to get these things off of the studs on the valve cover, you just pull straight up and they come out. That's it. All right, so we're getting really close to getting this valve cover off. Notice that even though this truck's pretty clean, engine bay's pretty tidy, there is still a little bit of residual dirt and stuff here. So what I'll do is I'll get some compressed air and just blow this area just to get any loose dust out of the way, just to minimize how much garbage falls into the rocker housing here. So anyway, I'll do that off camera. There's no sense in making all that noise. I'll just clean all this off and we'll get back to you. Okay, once you've got this area sufficiently clean so that we're not gonna really likely drop anything into the rocker box, we'll want to remove all of the studs and bolts out of the rocker cover assembly. And as you can see, there's about 10 of them or so around the perimeter of the valve cover, or rocker cover, whatever you want to call it. There's also the bracket right here for the engine oil dipstick. You don't need to remove the dipstick, you just need to undo that bolt and just move it out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, get the dipstick out of the way and all those other bolts out of the way. Just remember which side or which ones have the studs. It's these two right here. Sometimes I could like to put a little paint mark or something here to just remind me of where they were. But whatever works for you. So go ahead and remove those and we'll see you here in a little bit. All right, just thought I'd add a note here. Some of these ones that are tied up against the AC box here, you want to get with a flex head or a rotor head ratchet like this one. This one's just made by Carlisle. Pretty much every manufacturer makes one. But they really help a lot with getting these lower rocker cover bolts off. Very necessary tool on these Power Strokes. So if you don't already have one, you might want to grab something like this or rent one or buy one. But it helps immensely. I just thought I would add that as a note as I was getting this cover off. Okay, so we finally got all of the rocker cover bolts out. Now this thing is loose. I went ahead, before I removed that the last couple of bolts, I went ahead and took the air nozzle and blew the remaining chunks of dirt out of the way, just to make sure we don't have anything dropping in there. We want to be as clean as possible. Anyway, once the rocker cover's loose, we'll lift it up off of the rocker box and move it towards the back. And then that should give us clearance by the AC compressor right here to get everything kind of out of the way. I don't know if I could do it one-handed, but we'll try here. Do it with just one hand without dropping anything. Of course, the dipstick is kind of screwing with me. It's just the name of the game of these things, is just slowly get everything out of the way. So as you can see, I got the bottom half there propped off of the head, and we'll just lift up and kind of just wiggle things until stuff starts to clear. And then eventually we'll snake this guy out along with the, just like so. So that's how the rocker cover comes off of this. I'll set this aside and get you back to you in the next clip here. Wow, I'm finding it's quite difficult to get lighting in here to where you can see everything. But anyway, so that's what everything looks like in place here. The next order of operations here is I like to take the clips off of the injectors. So they sort of just, see if I can get my hand out of the way. They just lift up like so, and then the connector just slides out of the injector. So I'll go ahead and do that to all four. Get these out of the way so that we can get to the white plug right here, which is the plug for the glow plugs. So I guess I'll keep the camera running, easy enough. Just want to be very careful, especially if you're keeping the under valve cover harness. Just want to be very careful. All right, once these are out of the way, you can go ahead and sneak these wires for the valve covers off. What I like to use is some needle nose pliers that grab onto those, and I forgot to bring those to the truck, so I'll have to show you here in the next segment. All right, so here's my needle nose pliers. I'm gonna try to grab the glow plug harness and just pull straight up. They're not usually snapped in that hard, but so just repeat that process 3 more times here. All right, so these ones are going to be a little harder to get to, so I'll have to do that off camera. So once you get all of those glow plug connectors off, this under valve cover harness / gasket can come up. This one looks to be a replacement, one of the Dorman replacements. Normally the Motorcraft ones have another connector right on the bottom here, but as you can see, this is molded in as part of the gasket, so somebody's been in here before. Now that we've gotten all of the glow plug connectors off, we can pull the under valve cover harness gasket assembly out. It's pretty much just like the rocker cover. You're going to have to finagle with some harnesses and the dipstick tube here to get it out. Same sort of deal. Just lift it out. Just try to take your time. Patience is key here. Once you get everything out of the way, it sort of just pulls right out. Okay, so now that we've got the under valve cover harness out, I'm a very curious soul, so I'm going to put the test light back on the positive terminal here. I'm just testing it here real quick on the negative just to make sure it turns on. And we'll find the glow plugs and try to touch the test light. I don't know if we can get a decent angle here, but try to touch the test light to see if the light comes on. And as you can see here, I'm on the glow plug. You probably can't see that, but I am on the glow plug and the light has not come on. So we definitely have a burnt out glow plug. Check this one here on cylinder number 1. As you can see, cylinder number 1 lit up. So it tells me the harness that was on this vehicle is actually probably pretty good. No light. No light. So what we have here are 3 dead glow plugs. No light. So what I'll do is I'll get some tools to remove the glow plugs. Not too difficult once we've gotten to this level. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the rocker cover bolts are 13mm head. And the glow plug should be a 10mm. Okay, so what I've got here is a 10mm deep socket. This one's in 1/4" drive, and I'm just gonna slide this over the glow plug and make sure that I've got good contact with it, and use the same rotor head ratchet that I was using earlier in the valve cover bolts. All right, so what you want to do is break all 4 of these free, and a nice little trick I like to use is grab a fuel hose or something like this. I think this one's a 3/8, and shove that over the glow plug, the hex of the glow plug, and that should help you get it screwed out. Watch it not work because I told you guys it was my trick. All right, round 2 with the hose trick. The reason why you want to use the hose is because eventually your socket's going to hit up against the rocker right here. And if you use the hose, it's flexible and soft and can work around the rocker. So what you do is you get your hose and push it over that hex part of the glow plug. And once you feel it go in like that, it should just turn right out. I'm telling you, this trick works. I don't know why it doesn't ever want to work when I've got it on camera, but it does work. Oh, here goes. See, I wasn't a liar. All right, so that's the process for getting the glow plug out. I'm going to repeat that on the remaining 3 cylinders here. So the process of getting the new glow plugs in is basically backwards to how we took the old ones out. The glow plugs that I recommend are the factory Ford Motorcraft ones, and here's the part number for the ones that I bought. Anyway, These are the glow plugs. You don't want to touch the tip or anything, just want to keep everything as clean as possible. And we'll just insert this hex part into the fuel hose here. See if I can do this one-handed. Like so. And then we'll go ahead and put it into the head here. Just carefully, like I said, just trying to be careful. Try to guide it into its hole. And should slide in and use the hose to thread it in. You can also do this little rubber hose trick on spark plugs, on engines that are a little difficult to hand thread spark plugs into. But so we'll just hand thread it in here until the hose feels like it's slipping, which I think it is. And as you can see if I can pull you in closer and get you focused, the glow plug is most of the way seated into the block, or the head, that is. So from here, we'll take the 10mm socket and torque it down. I'll have the torque specs in the video description, but it's not very tight. It's something like 15 foot-pounds. Okay, so we have all 4 glow plugs in the head and torqued down to factory specs, which is 15 foot-pounds. Now it's time to put the under valve cover harness back in place. The customer supplied me with an aftermarket UVCH. So this one's made by Dorman. This is one of their better Dorman products. I don't normally put Dorman stuff on things that I work on, but this is one of the few exceptions. I much prefer the Alliant Power or the Motorcraft ones, to be honest, but this one will work. So basically, reversive removal. You just want to be kind of careful about how you put this in. You don't want to introduce more grime to the engine. And of course, you want to make sure that the mating surface is clean before you drop this gasket on there. You do not have to reuse the gasket if, you do not have to replace the gasket if you don't find any problems with it. But in this case, the customer only wanted me to be in here once, so elected to replace it with this part. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in. Anyway, I kind of want to be careful with this, the new one, so I don't know if I'll get this filmed. I need both hands for this. Okay, so it might take a little finagling to get it to drop in there, but eventually it will drop. You just got to take your time like anything else. Now, the next thing we want to do is plug the glow plugs back in. As you can see here, the gasket's still kind of moving on me, but just reverse of how we pulled it off. So this just snaps back into the glow plug. So I'm going to try to get this lined up by hand, and I'm just intentionally grabbing cylinder 5 here because it's easier to film. But same process on all of them. You just want to get everything lined up as best as you can and just take your time. You may need some pliers to do this. Okay, so now that we've got the valve cover harness roughly situated on the head here, we're just going to start off doing the glow plug harness first. Get those snapped onto the glow plugs. They are kind of a snap fit, so just take your time with some pliers. Just be very careful about pushing them down. You don't want to mess up the wiring. But anyway, some pliers help. And just keep pushing until they snap fit on. And then repeat that with the other remaining 3 cylinders. And after that, we will work at putting the injector harnesses back onto the injectors. Patience is key here. I'll probably work on this one next. And as you get these connected, the gasket will sit a little bit better onto the surface of the head here, or the rocker box. So I'm going to go ahead and do that same process on the remaining 3, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so as a quick sanity check, I like to, once I've got the glow plugs plugged in, I like to verify that everything seems okay via test light. So I'll hit all of these pins, the 4 outer pins, just to make sure I've got continuity to ground. And again, the test light's hooked up to the positive terminal of the battery. So I've just checked those 4 terminals, the ones that go to the glow plugs, just to make sure we have continuity and that there's not a problem with the connection to the glow plug or something wrong with this harness. So I've checked that. Once that's checked, we'll go ahead and plug the injectors back in, and we'll make sure that this is all situated nicely, and we'll get back to you in the next clip. All right, so I'll show you getting one of these hooked in. This is by far one of the more patience testing things to do on this. So we want to plug this injector harness into the injector. So you want to make sure this little tiny nub at the tip of my thumb right here is pointing up. And taking your time, try to manipulate this thing into place. It's so hard to do. You'll probably want to end up kicking and screaming by the time you're done with this, but as you can see here, it sort of just fell into place as I was talking. So you just want to ensure good contact and clip the clips on. Yeah, so again, put the nub in facing up. So it's one of those things that there's not a whole lot of clearance in here. Typical Ford. So you just want to just take your time, get everything to... Dexterity in your fingers is definitely key. You just want to, you don't want to like force it, you don't want to bend pins. All right, so they sort of just fall into place. Once you just learn to manipulate them with your fingers, good dexterity in your fingertips is key. So I'll get the last one in and we'll continue on. Okay, as I was doing this last one, I was realizing that I kind of misspoke. There's 2 nubbins on this connector here. There's one on the bottom and there's one up top. I'm sorry, I misled you there. So you want to have the nub that has a clip with it facing up. So I'll try to, sorry about my shaky hands here, try to just manipulate this guy into place. Oops, sorry. Oh, I was thinking I could do this, and so, yep, oops, there goes my glove. So we definitely don't want that dropping into the engine, so I'll carefully pull that off. All right, so going without gloves here. Again, we don't want to drop anything inside the rocker box. We've got this injector harness aligned and locked into place. You want to make sure all 4 of these injectors are locked into place properly. Come on. There you go. You want to make sure all those injectors are locked into place properly. You want to make sure all of your glow plug harnesses are in there correctly, and you want to make sure everything is out of the way where it will not get pinched by anything, whether it be the rockers or the rocker cover or valve cover. So you just want to check your work. Again, take your time. This is not the easiest job to do, so you don't want to do this twice. Better to take your time and make sure everything is correct before you proceed. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then we'll work on getting the rocker cover back on. Okay, so I've got my rocker cover that I've made sure to clean inside and out. I've got the rocker cover bolts that are also nice and clean and tidy. So now all we have to do is put this back together the way it was, while being very careful to not introduce any dirt into the engine. It's very tight, but it'll fit. Whoops. some guys don't like to keep the oil filler spout on, but I do because it gives you a little point here that you can leverage the rocker cover. And as you can see, I got it in, not too many issues. So now we'll just hand thread all the bolts into place, trying to remember which ones had the studs. And I can't do this with you guys in the way, so I'll probably turn the camera off here and proceed when I'm done. All right, so we've got everything started, all the bolts started here, so we can go ahead and start tightening this rocker or valve cover down. It's not very, the specs for it aren't very tight. It's something along the lines of 8 foot-pounds, which is a little more than what you're, or about, not a little more, but about what your wrist could put in if you're choked up on the wrench. Not something you should be cranking on, but we'll just get everything started here. And as you can see, I'm using a variety of different wrenches, just depending on, or ratchets that is, depending on the position. Not the easiest here with the AC box in the way, but it's definitely doable. Just take your time, be patient. So I'm going to continue on until I get everything snugged. Again, the torque spec I believe is 8 foot-pounds, and you just want to go in a kind of a circular pattern as you're tightening the bolts. Start in the middle, go down to the next one, go to the next one, and just this one, that one, the far corners, and just keep going in increments until you get to about the 8 foot-pound mark. Okay, so we've got all the rocker cover bolts torqued to spec. Don't forget about the dipstick nut here. You probably can't see it because everything's in the way, but believe me, it's down there. It's about where my index, right about there where my index finger is. Make sure that's tight too. You don't want your dipstick falling out. Once you've ensured everything is tightened, now we just start putting everything back together the way it was. Hopefully you remember where everything goes. I might keep the camera rolling here just as I go and maybe do a time-lapse sort of thing. So just a matter of taking your time again. Just be thorough. Remember what you've tinkered with and what you haven't. Right now I'm going to go ahead and plug this harness in because it's a lot easier to get to now than when everything's put back together. You want to make sure this clips in properly and locks in. If not, you'll want to replace that. You'll definitely want to replace that connector if it doesn't snap in. Sorry about bumping you guys. Make sure I got this right. Okay, yeah. It's not real stable right there, is it? Let's see if I can work around y'all. Goes on the further one. What's going on here?
Everything is so tight in these engine compartments, it's not even funny. Okay, that harness is in properly. All right, so this is just a matter of just double checking everything that you have done up to this point. So we got the harness hooked up, we got the heater hoses wired again, or not wired, routed again. The AC switch here plugged back in, all the clips for the harness, all the clips and stuff for the harnesses are nice and secure the way they were. Now we just need to pull our rags out of the turbo inlet and the charge air cooler down here. Do not forget your rags. That is not a good thing if that gets sucked into the engine. So anyway, I will proceed with that and we'll see you here in a little bit. Okay, so now we have the fun task of getting the charge air line back into the engine bay here. And it's just reverse of how we removed it. We'll want to stick the intercooler end into the hole first and sort of just snake it in. Like so. And you want to be very careful about not getting any dirt inside these tubes. You don't want that stuff in your engine at all. And it will sneak in. You just have to, again, be patient. Say a little prayer if you have to, or whatever it is that you choose to do. And eventually, she will go in. And now remembering which holes to put it in is maybe another trick. But I'm just watching the intercooler end here just to make sure it's not getting dug into some dirt or something. You want to make sure it's clean. And as you can see here, I'm starting to get it close. All right. So now I'm going to get the intercooler side plugged in. Okay, that's slid in. Now, it's just a matter of getting this put in. The cool air side of the piping. And then slide your clamps back into place here, which looks like I'm going to have to loosen that with the ratchet. Oops, wrong socket. 7/16. So go ahead and put that up here, get it lined up. And there's nice little lineup marks on the rubber hose if you've got the factory one still. And then make sure it's on the pipe correctly. Just do a minor snug on that. We don't want to tighten it all the way until we have the intercooler side tightened. But you just want to make sure the rubber hose is up against this flange here. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so hopefully you can see here. I'm trying to show you what I mean by the alignment marks. Son of a gun. So if this would ever focus, there we go. There's lines on the hose for where the hose clamp is supposed to be, and there's a, oh man, this rib here on the intercooler lines up with the alignment mark on the hose. So you just want to make sure everything's lined up the way it should be. I've got a really long extension here, as you can see on my ratchet. I'll get it snugged up, and then I'll do a final torque with a hand ratchet so that we don't end up over torquing these clamps. And same with the ones over here, or one over there. I only loosened the one. So I'll make sure that's right, and then we'll see you here in the next segment. All right, so with the charge air cooler piping in place and its hose clamps tightened properly, you just want to go snug so that the rubber hoses here don't come off, but you don't want to go so tight that you end up distorting the piping or the plastic intercooler here. Now it's just a matter of putting everything back, like, you know, this map sensor or whatever you want to call it, boost pressure sensor. I forget what the Ford term is for that, but I disconnected it, so I'm going to reconnect it. Both the vacuum hose as well as the electrical plug. And I'll just triple check anything that I might have touched, like the other under valve cover harness connector here on this side. I'll make sure that I've plugged that back in, and put the deadening panel right here. So yeah, let's just get to it. Sometimes long pliers are your friends on these trucks. But all right, so that's in. All right, so we're gonna get the electrical connector on. Lock tab should be in the down position. So we'll just push the connector in until it clicks in. And then the lock tab should just push right up. And as per usual, it just doesn't want to cooperate. Oh, there we go. All right, so that keeps the electrical plug there from disconnecting on its own. All right, so final steps. I took the deadening panel over here for the vacuum pump off. So we'll go ahead and put that on. As you can see here, it sort of just lays in here. I took it off because it was just introducing too much dust into the situation. I didn't care for that. I didn't want to get any dirt in the engine. So I got these snap fit things here, quick speed clips, I think is what they call them. So that's a deadening panel, mostly for the noise of the vacuum pump that's right in this corner right here. All right, so we'll just keep looking over anything that we might have touched. We want to triple check, make sure everything is hunky-dory. And my connector on this side is connected. I didn't mess with anything here. I did loosen this right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that. Alrighty, I guess since I had that cover loose and off, I should mention this. This is the engine oil temperature sensor. This is what tells the PCM whether we should have the glow plug cycle or not. So I don't remember the specs for it, but when the temperature gets so cold, the engine oil temperature gets cold enough, it tells the PCM to power up the glow plug relay, which is up here, and then do the glow plug warm up. If your engine oil is hot, this will tell the PCM that glow plugs aren't required. So if your glow plugs aren't coming on when it's cold, your glow plug relay that is, this is the switch I was talking about. You might want to look into ohming that out and comparing it to spec or just replacing it. So it is a little normal to have some blue smoke come out because when you pull the glow plugs out, a little bit of engine oil drops into the combustion chamber, but it should clear out pretty quickly. Okay, so it's the next morning. I noticed last night that the cranking speed was a little bit slow, so we ended up replacing the batteries for a pair of new ones, and that's our rusting voltage right now. Let's see how this thing does. About 31 degrees this morning. Let this guy do its thing for a few seconds. It's pretty cold. All right, let's give it a crank and see what happens. Beautiful.